really here to necessarily put more effort in, right? It's about working smarter, getting more clarity around things, getting that helicopter view as often as you can, like really daily if you can orientate yourself on what's going on. And and really not pushing things and forcing things, because it's kind of in that sort of that doing versus being thing that we always talk about. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit into the doing versus being. And maybe if it helps you guys, if you do write notes and things like that, you can basically have two columns, one for doing and one for being, right? And I'm curious to know, when you woke up this morning, what did you immediately start to do? What happens when you woke up this morning? What do you do? What did you do? But a lot of us, we tend to kind of get into the doing quite quickly, right? We often check our phones or emails, and we get straight into the breakfast, the work, the study mode, and then we come home from work and we still handle all the chores, and then we collapse into bed and then we repeat, right? So very common, we're kind of trained to operate in that sort of doing way of doing things. But what if all that doing is actually keeping you from what you want most, right? And what if success, clarity, and peace, and all the progress that you guys are really, really craving aren't in that sort of to do or that next doing sort of state, right? But in your ability to pause and reflect and water the garden and just be really, really present, right? And I'll give you just a couple of examples of what these two types of states look like, right? And you can kind of recognize whether you're more in one versus the other. Yeah. So for someone that's in a doing state, you're very reactive, you are quite goal focused, you're behavior driven, you're success driven, you're thinking driven, or more kind of that doing task orientated doing. You're busy, you're quite controlled, you tend to plan and organize, you can be restless, and you also question a lot of things, right? So that's kind of that doing state, quite reactive, quite on the go, always busy, always doing stuff. This was me for a long time, right? And especially if you're in a high achieving, kind of educated, slightly corporate, slightly academic sort of state, we in that quite a bit. We're very busy, we're very controlled, we're very organized, we doers, we go, 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 right? Now compare that to the being sort of state, which is, a little bit more response. You respond to things, you're insightful, you're quite self-aware, you're values driven, right? And that's what really hit me, was my values driven stuff. And I go, well, I need to get into a bit more of my values and actually demonstrate my values. And that got me out of my doing a bit. You're not afraid to fail if you're in the being state. You're more focused on the feelings and the emotions around it. You rest, you relax, you trust, as opposed to feeling like you have to control everything. You're in more of that nurturing state. You're more patient, you're more accepting, right? So those are the two very different states, right? Now, when we studied the 500 best CEOs in the US, right? Something I did for a while, they are balancing these two things pretty well, right? A lot of CEOs, or a lot of really successful people, what do they do in the morning, right? There's the 5 a.m. club, right? A lot of them have, as part of the 5 a.m. club, where they sit and they do nothing. Not nothing. They reflect, they think, they pause, they dream, they get into the meditation, their exercise, their gratitude. They really in that kind of visioneering kind of state first thing in the morning. They don't work till about 10:30, right? And that is something where the doing is very masculine, right? Masculine energy is this kind of constant, I've got to keep working, 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 pushing, pushing, pushing. It's force, right? So doing is masculine and it's forceful, right? Now, the being is very feminine, right? That's feminine energy. That's the thinking, the pausing, the resting, the relaxing, creating space. And that's power, right? There's a difference between force and power, right? And these 500 CEOs that they've studied, that were really some of the most incredible CEOs, they balance these two things very well. A lot of people think, a lot of us tend to be 95% doing, masculine, right? And what I want all of you guys to start thinking about is just how can we drop a little bit of that masculine way of going about things and bring in a bit more of the feminine energy, right? And this was really not me, right? I could not do and fill in every minute of the day, right? Now I achieved everything that I kind of wanted, but it didn't give me what I wanted. Why? Because I didn't freaking stop to think and create and dream and hold a vision and actually just, orientate myself every day, right? But this is society, right? We're in this huge doing society at the moment where it's just go, 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 go. And there's nothing wrong with being the doing, right? That's the action takers, right? And again, the year 2026 is all about momentum and taking action, right? But you've got to have that balance, right? But when we live from the doing alone, we're going to disconnect from who we are, why we're here, what we're doing, what truly matters, and all those kind of things. You're working really hard going sideways. And again, that's something that we really, really want to sort of start to just massage a little bit. Small upgrades, massive impact on your results, on your progress, on your health, and how you go about everything. Yeah. And that's just, I used to say to people, like, we've become human doings as opposed to human beings, right? Human beings are supposed to be beings. We're supposed to be human beings, right? Not human doings, right? And we live in a world where we now celebrate speed, output, control, all that stuff, quick results, right? AI-driven outputs. Go back to who we're meant to be. We're supposed to be human beings, right? Like that really, I think I came up with this 2 years ago. Like, I remember, anyway, but it was just, yeah. But we've got to have awareness around, really, we are not really fulfilling the human being role. I tend to enjoy not touching my phone. I'm a bad messaging person. Like, I will not reply. I don't reply. I'm terrible at it because I don't sit on my phone. Like, I don't just, sit on it. But these holidays, I feel like I've been grabbing it every time I have 2 seconds to sit. Right? And that's a thing I want to sort of tidy up again. And I think, it's sometimes we confuse the doing and the being as well, right? What might be, you know, you think you're doing or you're being, is actually still kind of in that, doing state, right? And we have to kind of draw some lines between what's the difference between the two. So what happens, what do you guys think happens when you lean a bit more into the being? What do you think could happen for you? What are some of the things that being a little bit more in that feminine state could create for you? But what being can offer is a few things. I'll go through 5 things, and I want you guys to write these down because it's starting to believe and having this open idea that if I do a bit more of the being, it can actually really create the results in a better way than forcing it through the doing, right? So one of the things that it can offer you in the being state is insight. When you pause and you start to see things more clearly, and you orientate yourself on things, you get a whole nother perspective on everything and new ideas comes in, right? And solutions will emerge and you may, connect with your values and all those kind of things. So you get a whole lot of insight into everything simply by being in that being state, right? And again, if you do this daily, it's incredible, right? It's going to give you time. Ironically, being gives you more time because you have more insight and it helps you to focus on what really matters because you get nice perspective, you orientate yourself on what you need to do, and you stop wasting energy on what doesn't matter, right? Because what happens when we're in that sort of force doing state is that we work really hard going sideways. We put energy into things that, is not actually taking you towards your goal, right? Then in the being state, it's just a whole lot easier, right? Just being doesn't require any effort. Not a lot of effort anyway, right? And you don't need special training. And all you got to do is simply let go, right? Now that's hard for some of us. Letting go, right? The fourth one is energy, right? Doing drains us. That's out. Masculine is putting energy out. That's one of the biggest definitions of doing and being in masculine and feminine. Doing is masculine. Masculine is all about putting energy out, right? And this is a good thing to kind of, again, distinguish between it. Being a bit more in a feminine energy is all about putting energy back in. Now, if all of us understand science and physics and balance and how the world works, it likes balance, right? Yet a lot of us put a lot of energy out without putting energy back in. Yeah. So energy doing drains, being restores. Even 5 minutes of stillness can completely refill your tank, right? And we'll go through a couple of examples that some of us can maybe think about taking away and implementing. The fifth one is growth, right? In a being state, we tend to grow, right? We reflect, we reconnect with who we are and what we've got and all the gratitude and all those things, not just on what we do. Because doing, again, the stuff that we do is very shallow, right? That's just task driven, it's not really growth orientated. And seriously, like in the being state, that's just a whole lot more fun. And it brings us back to all the joy, all the presence, the beauty of the now, and all those kind of things. And again, just be open to the idea that the less I force things, the more I step into my being, I'm going to have more insight. I'm going to have more time. I'm going to create more ease in my workflow. I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to grow and I'm going to have a ton of fun. Right. And I had to just be open to the idea. I didn't want to accept this when I was, this is probably 15 years ago. For me, it was all about filling in every minute of the day. I was extremely organized. I had papers under my arm everywhere, papers in the car, stuff on the train. If I had to wait for the kids, I had stuff to do on my computer, right? Yeah, right. Got me somewhere, but I'm still kind of always curious as to where I could have been if I understood a little bit of how some of this works. And it's like this is a habit change for all of us. It's a change in thinking, it's a change in habits, and it's going to take a bit of time for us to get out of this and not be I was a category 5 tornado, right? Oh gosh, I was on a roll. So I'll share this with everyone. I don't work long hours at all. I'm lucky if I work 20 hours a week. Right? And man, this is coming from someone that worked 80 hours a week. Like I was full on academic, right? And I loved it and I was driven and I enjoyed working and I met my husband, through the end of my PhD and he owned his own business. So we both just worked because he worked his ass off, right? So we had no other commitments other than, yeah, thank goodness my sport pulled me out of the office in the evenings, right? But other than that, and this is when I realized, especially my postdoc years, I would just sit in the office for the whole day, getting very little done. I worked, but I realized because I didn't have anything taking me out of the office, I just took the entire day to do certain stuff because, yeah, I wasn't going to leave at 5 p.m. I was going to leave at 8, right? And that just, I mean, I quickly realized that's just not productive. That just seemed to have, I just constantly work, right? But I had to, it took me years to accept the idea that I need to stop and do these other things, which we can share now, and put them in place in my daily routine in order to create better results. And then, like I said before, values was what really made me think about this properly. And then my kids helped me, right? The minute I had kids, I realized, yeah, what am I showing to my kids at the moment, right? Is it okay that mum works this many hours every day of the week, not getting paid for any of it or half of it? And, there's just no self-care, there's no breaks, and that's where the shift came for me. That helped me, thank goodness, right? But, it's sometimes we don't have these real triggers that makes us stop and think. So then we have to do this thinking work through repetition and start to accept a new idea. And then we got to work through all the habits of shifting old habits into better habits, right? But less is more, right? And the goal work is what I then also accept that, you know, if I think about my goal every single day and it's always at the forefront of my mind, and it's coming from that wish fulfilled, then I am working at a 400-fold higher thinking level every single day, which is where I want to create ideas from. I don't want to create ideas from my current result, right? So that concept in itself was enough for me when I first did this work to stop and go, okay, I need to think about my goal from the wish fulfilled every single day and really feel into it so that it's at the forefront of my conscious mind. And then I've got to be open to all the ideas that will come in because these ideas are going to be freaking powerful, right? And then I became very good at this, that I apply this to every areas of my life. And I just then go, okay, here's my goal. And then I sit here and I just literally download the inspiration. Yeah. But that only happens in the mornings. And I'm a very student. All of us tend to be good students, right? I listened to my coaches at the time. I woke up, I did the work. I did too much of the work too, right? So, I stopped working with some of the group that I'm in because I'm too much of a student. I'm too much of I follow every task properly. Again, not really feeling it and being it properly. I was too much of a student. Like this is again that sort of doing that underlying. I thought I was shifting out of the doing, but I was still forcing and being a good student all the time, right? Without genuinely, authentically connecting and being in that state, right? But now, and like we did it intensely as well. So the results I then had by doing this work intensely blew my freaking mind. This is why I was so sort of annoyed that I've learned all this at university. I've got all this knowledge. I'm a brain scientist, yet no one told me that this is how I can go about my life when it comes to just stopping and thinking, right? Then I had all these ideas and I literally created everything I wanted. Yeah. Then I had to jump, right? This is one of the lessons we'll do lessons next week and the week after again. Then I had to jump, which is really stepping through fear, right? And make some decisions that wasn't necessarily calculated and well thought out, but it was the right ideas at the time, and I went for it. It took a fair bit to accept this. I mean, it's all it is awareness and then accept that there's a different way that we can go about things. And seriously, it's not about sitting here grinding out, doing more work, forcing it. We can create quantum leaps without any apparent effort. The only thing we've got to do is stop and think and allow. And, my ideas came through when I sat in my kids' bedrooms on the carpet waiting for them to fall asleep. I was in the darkness. All my best ideas came through then. But this is U squared. U squared is not about us doubling our efforts in order to create double the result, right? It's taking a very unconventional way of being, and without apparent effort, you can quantum leap. So for you guys, let's talk about some ideas that we can bring into our daily stuff. Who's already doing a bit of grounding or just some pausing and stuff? And let's share some ideas as to what could work for us that we can start to bring into our day, that we can allow for a bit more of this to happen. And again, this is next week's lesson a bit, that aiming point, because it goes everywhere. It goes to the kids' swimming lessons and it goes everywhere else, right? But it also needs to go towards your goal in order for you to get these inspired ideas to come through, right? Now you've got to be open to receiving these ideas. Most of us don't even open our minds up to go, oh, or listen to what comes in, right? Now I've had to really work out how to use my intuition and my imagination, all those, they call it kind of, I guess, more creative elements, because I wasn't good at that, right? Now I completely use my intuition, right? And I still catch myself and I go, yeah, I knew my husband left home yesterday without his keys, but I didn't do anything about it. And then he messaged me an hour and a half later saying, no keys. I'll see you soon. So he had to drive all the way back to come and get his office keys, right? I had that in my head that morning he drove out, but I didn't act on it yet. And that's the bit that awareness is great. Then we got to act those ideas immediately, grab them, right? But play with this, like get really playful with. It's the same as thinking about one of your friends or your family member, and then suddenly they message you, right? Like all that stuff is really real, right? But yes, pausing is something that I want all of you guys to build in. But make a decision today as to how and where and what that looks like for you, right? Is it first thing in the morning, I'm going to do this, right? Because if we don't decide, we sit in this diffuse state and nothing happens. Yeah, decision making is huge for this. Before jumping into anything, who am I being today, right? Gratitude is brilliant, right? For me, it's something that I do a little bit. I do future gratitude in the morning, which is the goal work. And then in the evenings, I do just gratitude for the day because it's my grounding. It's how, it's how I then want to go to bed with. It's just being fully grounded, getting rid of the hustle from the day. Going for walks, watering the garden, all that stuff, putting your feet in the grass just for 5 or 10 minutes, all that stuff is beautiful, right? And then the orientation thing that we spoke about last week is just about orientate yourself, then slow down, pick up one task. All of you guys should know that for January, you're sitting on one task. Do it without rushing. Just do it, be in it. Yeah. And sometimes we have to let go. We have to let go of the control and needing to know things. And yeah, I think someone said to us one day, being isn't something that you achieve, it's something that you allow. But if you have that curiosity around, and just that open mind that I'm here to learn and I accept I'm going to be challenged and I'm ready for that challenge just because I want to learn and grow because being comfort is actually not where we're comfortable. It's a good place to be at, but we don't like to be in comfort. Then yeah, it's just that a slight switch in perception around, what am I on and how's this going to go? Because it can be very tough. But if you have that expectation that I'm here to really understand more about who I am and people and learning and all that sort of stuff, it's a very different shift in the body. So I want all of you guys to think about one small shift that you can make in your daily routines and share it with the group, put in a chat, commit to it, make a decision today as to what that's going to be. And again, if you can share it to the group, you're putting it out there, right? Then the likelihood of you doing this is going to happen more quickly, right? The minute we make decisions and we put it out there for others to sort of feel into as well, you can collapse time with how quickly that habit can shift. Yeah. So write it down, make a decision, speak it out loud, tell someone. Yeah. And then, there's a couple of other things I think we sort of shared, one of the books that I read, I'm not sure if anyone's read. So the book is called Miracle Morning, and it has, I think there's six, I've actually just grabbed it. There's six things that you should do in your morning routine, or you can think about doing. And it's the acronym is SAVERS. So S is for silence, right? Let me just make sure I get them all. S is for silence. Be quiet in your mind and block out the chatter through meditation, prayer, or focused breathing. So savers. S is silence. A is for affirmations, like Maggie was sharing. Tell yourself an encouraging word to achieve your goals. For me, an affirmation for a while was literally in the mornings, just telling myself, what miracles will I achieve today? Right? I had a big, big statement like that, something like that. What miracles will you have me achieve today? Was my question that I woke up to. So that's S is silence, A is affirmations, V is for visualization. Imagine yourself doing each thing you need to do for the day and imagine what it feels like to succeed. Yeah, so it's the V. The E is for exercise, go for a walk or a jog. Movement is great. R is for reading, fill your brain with positive thoughts and ideas to improve yourself, right? So I've got a couple of books now that I read two books at the moment. So, but there's one that I just pick up and I make sure before I close my eyes in the evenings, I read, even if it's literally a paragraph, because it's a really good book. That's what I want to sleep with, is with those thoughts. Yeah. And then S is scribing, write a journal to process your thoughts and reflect on what you've achieved, right? So savers, silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. That's just some ideas that you guys can think and start with one. Like, I don't expect you to just implement these 5 or 6 things and get them all right. I mix it up. Mine changes all the time. And it's a good thing that they change all the time because the brain habituates, right? Once it gets used to a certain pattern, it no longer activates to it, right? So change it up. Maybe do this in the mornings and, something else in the evenings. But I think it's really good to start your day with something. I think that's what I want you guys to think about. How can you start your day with something that's going to allow for these beautiful new big ideas to come through and just give you perspective and calmness. And then again, do a grounding thing before bed. Leave yourself to close your eyes with things you really want to sleep on. Not the news, not the hassle from the day, not the frustrations from the meetings and all that kind of stuff. Right? So the brain then can process this overnight and you'll wake up in the mornings with ideas. And like Kate sometimes says, leave your brain with a question overnight. Your brain is constantly delivering you messages. I now, more often than not, just sit and I watch. And I watch the kids do their lessons and enjoy it. And I smile because they played some great shots at tennis. I don't just sit in a car and do work, right? But that's also a shift I made. There's moments where I do, I don't watch them. I have to then just maybe write something or get something back to someone. But more often now, when I'm out with the kids with their stuff, I am present. Yeah. More than not. Let's go with that. Less pushing, more presence, less noise, more clarity, less proving to the world, more peace. And let's work on being human beings, right? And then tell us what's the thing that you want to work on, and we can give a bit of commitment to it or accountability to it. I'm a lot more fluid with not sticking to routines and being this good student all the time and doing all these things like the books tell me, right? I do mix it up and I let it go. And for some times of the year, I do other stuff because I travel or the kids are home, right? So yeah, I think keep it a little bit fluid, right? And then do change it because your brain habituates. Thanks, everyone. Make a decision, take one or two things in, start your day with inspiration and downloads and fun things like it's the fun stuff, right? We've got to start a day on that note, yeah? But make decisions as to what that's going to look like. Because yes, you can leave here going, yeah, I'm going to do something, but make a definitive decision what that's going to look like for you. And if you're not sure and you need some help around it, you can always ask me. Have an amazing rest of your Friday and weekend.